Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever felt like you're trying to drink from a fire hose?
Huh. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Because that's really what keeping up with new scientific information feels like these days.
It really does.
Every single day, the sheer volume, journal articles, studies, database updates, it's just immense. It's like a tidal wave coming at you.
It is completely overwhelming.
Right.
And, think about teams, especially in areas like medical affairs, say in biotech or pharma.
Right.
For them, staying on top of all that literature isn't just like nice to have. It's absolutely fundamental to what they do.
They need it for everything.
Exactly. Generating evidence, communicating findings accurately, making sure everything is compliant across different regions. It's huge.
Right, because their credibility and honestly, the decisions they support, it all hinges on having the most current evidence-based info available and fast. But the traditional way of doing this, manual literature review.
Yeah.
That means people sifting through potentially thousands of publications by hand. It's incredibly slow, very resource intensive.
And let's be honest, it just can't keep pace. Not with how quickly new data is emerging, how fast these fields are evolving.
Absolutely not. Our sources really hammer this home, don't they? Calling scientific review resource heavy by nature.
Yeah.
And it's more than just finding the papers, right? It's making sure the information is timely, setting up ongoing surveillance systems, and getting those insights out quickly enough to support things like talking to doctors or making key strategic moves.
Trying to do that manually, especially across big global teams dealing with different regulations, it sounds like a recipe for friction and delay.
It introduces so much friction.
And then delay.
Exactly. And what's the risk if you do fall behind? I mean, the sources mention it can lead to missed opportunities or maybe giving incomplete answers.
Which is really risky, particularly in fast-moving fields like oncology or rare diseases where the science is just exploding.
Okay, so how are the teams who are, let's say, ahead of the curve tackling this information tsunami?
Right, well, this is where it gets really interesting. The sources show that the forward-thinking teams, they're turning to AI-powered tools.
Ah, AI, okay.
And this is a really critical distinction they make, it's not about AI replacing the human scientists.
Okay, good. That's important.
It's about AI enhancing their capabilities. Using tech like natural language processing, machine learning, these tools can handle the sheer scale of the information.
In a way humans just can't alone.
Precisely.
Okay, so drilling down a bit. How does this tech specifically accelerate the process? What is the AI actually doing that makes such a difference?
Great question. And the source gives us some pretty concrete examples. First off, AI can triage vast numbers of articles incredibly quickly.
Triage. So sorting them.
Yeah, think scanning abstracts or even full text almost instantly.
Yeah.
And crucially, it can apply those often complex inclusion and exclusion criteria.
The rules about what's relevant.
Exactly. It applies those rules consistently and automatically across every single document. That consistency, it's incredibly hard to maintain manually with thousands of papers.
I can see that. Consistency alone would be a massive win. Reducing human error or just, subjective takes on the criteria. What else?
Well, beyond just finding the relevant papers, it can automate the extraction of structured insights. This is key.
Structured insights.
Meaning pulling specific data points like study endpoints, patient population sizes, specific outcomes, dosages, pulling that directly from the text of a publication.
Out of the dense paragraphs.
Yes, and putting it into a format that's immediately usable, like a spreadsheet or a database.
Okay, that sounds incredibly powerful for actually getting usable data out quickly. And what about this idea of living reviews that the sources brought up? That sounded intriguing.
Oh, yes, the concept of living reviews. This completely changes the game.
How so?
Instead of a literature review being this static report, that's basically outdated almost as soon as it's finished.
Which happens all the time.
Right. AI can automatically update that review whenever new relevant content is published.
Whoa.
So it moves from being this reactive snapshot in time process to something dynamic, continuous, always current.
That level of continuous updating.
Wow.
That must enable a whole range of new possibilities. What are some real-world examples the sources highlight? Where are teams using this?
Oh, lots of examples. Think about medical information teams. They need to respond quickly to questions from healthcare professionals.
Right. Lots doing.
AI can continuously scan databases, instantly flag high-priority findings related to common questions. So they have the absolute latest data right there.
Okay, I see. Or for scientific communications, maybe using AI to quickly spot trends or find specific data points for their messaging.
Exactly. Ensuring consistency in the evidence they use, the language they use globally. It can even help with compliance, like
Yeah.
automatically tagging literature based on sensitivity or maybe regional rules.
That makes sense.
Absolutely. And it's hugely valuable for field medical teams, too. They need curated summaries, maybe tailored to specific doctors' interests,
Right.
or for supporting complex projects like real-world evidence or HEOR studies, streamlining that really tedious data extraction from publications.
So it takes away some of the grunt work there.
A lot of it. Even competitive intelligence benefits. AI can analyze competitor publications way faster than a human could ever hope to.
Okay, so it's clear there are many applications. If you're a team thinking about this, wanting to move beyond manual processes, what should you look for in an AI platform? The sources gave a kind of checklist, right?
They did, and this really gets to the heart of trust and, practical use. You absolutely need platforms that use clinical-grade natural language processing models.
Clinical grade. Why is that so critical?
Because biomedical literature uses its own specific language, its own terminology, nuances. General AI models just won't get it right. They won't understand accurately. The models have to be trained specifically on that type of content.
Okay, domain specificity. Makes sense. What else?
Auditability and traceability. These are non-negotiables, especially for regulatory compliance. You have to be able to see exactly where every piece of extracted information came from.
Right, you need that trail.
Definitely. Customizable workflows are also essential. Teams need to adapt the tool to their specific review processes, maybe add their own expert notes or annotations.
And it can't just be a standalone thing, right? It needs to talk to other systems teams are already using.
Precisely. Good API integration, connecting with publication databases like PubMed or internal document systems, maybe even CRMs, that's crucial.
Okay.
And since many of these teams are global, support for international compliance standards like GDPR and the ability to handle different languages in the source material, those are must-haves too.
So putting all that together, what kind of actual impact are these tools having? Are teams seeing real results?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
The sources shared a specific client example, a global biotech company.
Okay.
They implemented one of these platforms and saw a 40% reduction in their average literature review cycle time.
Wow, 40%. That's not a minor tweak. That's a fundamental shift in efficiency.
It's huge.
Think about what a team can do with 40% of that time back. They can get to the analysis, the application, so much faster.
Exactly. And it addresses a common question that came up in the sources FAQ section. Can you completely trust AI summaries or extractions?
Right. That's a key point.
And the answer is AI provides an incredibly powerful starting point. It helps teams prioritize, filter, extract data super fast. But human oversight, human validation, still absolutely necessary.
Especially for the really critical stuff.
Especially for high-stakes reviews or when making important medical assessments, yes. The real value is freeing up those human experts from the tedious, repetitive tasks.
So they can focus their critical judgment where it's needed most.
Exactly, on the nuanced analysis, the interpretation, the application of the information.
And what about compliance and validation? Is this technology really ready for prime time in regulated environments?
The sources suggest that many of these tools are being built with regulations like GDPR or FDA guidance in mind. That's encouraging. But validating the vendor's specific capabilities and their compliance against your team's unique requirements is always, always critical. Due diligence is key.
Makes sense. And implementation, is it a huge undertaking?
Interestingly, they suggest it can be relatively quick. With the right partner and a clear project scope, teams could potentially start seeing value within, say, 6-8 weeks.
That's faster than I might have thought.
Okay.
So let's pull all of this together then. What's the core takeaway from this deep dive?
I think the fundamental point is that the sheer volume and the speed of scientific data, it's only increasing. Relying solely on manual processes for literature review just isn't sustainable anymore. It's becoming impossible.
Right. And AI steps in here not as a replacement for people, but as an essential tool. A tool to enable much faster sorting or triaging of that information.
Richer synthesis of the data within the information.
And those really crucial continuous automatic updates, the living reviews we talked about.
Exactly. And ultimately, that allows teams to make a critical shift in focus.
A shift away from
the time-consuming, often laborious work of just finding and synthesizing the information.
And dedicating more energy to the higher value work.
Right. Applying those insights. Informing strategy. answering critical scientific and medical questions, driving actual progress in their fields.
And when you think about it, for you listening, no matter what your specific role or interest is, staying current, having access to timely, accurate, evidence-based information, well, it's essential. And these AI tools are rapidly becoming indispensable in making that even possible in today's crazy information environment.
It really raises an interesting final thought, though, doesn't it? Building on what the sources hinted at.
Go on.
If AI can create these living reviews, these knowledge bases that automatically update themselves as new content is published, completely changing how current our baseline knowledge can even be. What does that really imply for the future?
The future of human expertise.
Yeah. How will human experts work alongside systems where the foundational review, the starting point, is this constantly evolving entity, always up to date? Something to think about.